Let's dive right into this explainer. Picture this, it's the 1980s. We're in Hicksville, New York. Inside a completely mundane Citibank safe deposit box sits an ancient Coptic manuscript, literally just sitting there, slowly rotting away.
The sheer absurdity of this is just wild. I mean, we're talking about a text that survived the fall of the Roman Empire. It outlasted the Arab conquest of Egypt, the Crusades, 2 world wars, and yet, it was nearly destroyed by the fluctuating humidity and changing seasons of a modern commercial bank vault on Long Island.
To really grasp what was decaying in that box, we've got to jump way back to 18 CE. The church father Irenaeus denounced a specific text as a dangerous heresy. He explicitly called it the Gospel of Judas, condemning it as a fictitious history. And right after he wrote those words, the text completely vanished from the historical record for 18 long centuries.
Part 1, The Modern Odyssey. Let's look at how this manuscript actually survived. Trace this timeline with me. Sometime in the 1970s, Egyptian farmers pulled this thing from a cave. Fast forward to 1983, it pops up in Geneva. But a massive $3 million asking price meant no scholars or institutions could afford it. So what happens? An antiquities dealer just shoves it into that Hicksville safe deposit box from 1984 all the way to 2000. It wasn't until a Swiss art dealer named Frieda Chakos Nussberger finally bought it that the agonizing decay stopped, which eventually paved the way for its publication in 2006.
The number 25 here is the real tragedy. Think about it. After 16 centuries of being perfectly preserved and hidden in an Egyptian cave, a mere 25 years of modern human greed and total carelessness permanently destroyed parts of this codex. The papyrus just dried up, contracted, and crumbled into unrecoverable dust. We literally lost pieces of history we're never getting back.
Part 2. Scythian Gnostic Theology. We really need to build this framework to understand what the text actually says.
So, in Scythian cosmology, the physical world isn't some divine, beautiful creation to be celebrated. Not at all. It's viewed as a literal prison built by the demiurge. And the demiurge is this lesser, ignorant creator who mistakenly believes he's the one true supreme God.
Building on that, we get the concept of the divine spark. Scythians basically believed human beings are hybrids. Sure, we have this physical body created by the demiurge, but trapped deep inside that material prison is the divine spark. And that spark comes straight from the true, supreme, invisible spirit. Which leads us to a crucial piece of logic. If the material body is literally a prison, then death isn't a catastrophe. Death is the ultimate liberation. It's the necessary release of that divine spark so it can finally return to its supreme source. Keep this specific idea firmly in your mind because it completely flips how we're supposed to view the act of killing within this specific text.
Part 3. Traitor or Trusted Instrument. Let's apply this theology directly to the story.
The Gospel opens with a scene that immediately sets a wildly different tone. Jesus is actually laughing at the other disciples, mocking them because they're praying to the lower cosmic forces of the demiurge. They just don't get the true nature of reality. But Judas? Judas alone steps forward and says, "I know who you are and where you have come from." Recognizing that Judas actually gets it, Jesus physically separates him from the rest of the group to give him these private teachings about the immortal realm.
Then we hit this massive, climactic instruction. Jesus turns to Judas and says, "You will sacrifice the man that clothes me." Now remember that Scythian logic we just talked about. Jesus is explicitly asking Judas to free his divine spirit by handing over his material body. He's literally asking for liberation.
And that brings us to the emotional core of this reading. It is the ultimate theological inversion. In this specific framework, Judas isn't the traitor who sold out his friend for silver. He's the trusted instrument. He is stepping up to perform the ultimate act of love and obedience, doing the absolute hardest thing, exactly what Jesus needed done to escape his physical prison.
That right there was the explosive narrative presented to the entire world by National Geographic in 2006. Obviously, it made global headlines. But we really have to ask, did the translators actually get it right? Because almost immediately after publication, a massive wave of academic pushback started rolling in. Part 4. The April Deconic Challenge. Let's look closely at what happened next.
Dr. April Deconic, a major scholar of early Christianity, argued that the 2006 translation team fundamentally missed the context of the vocabulary. Just look at how the exact same Coptic phrases get interpreted. Where National Geographic translated a key line saying, "Judas will exceed them all," which obviously elevates him, Taconic points out the Coptic verb there more accurately means to be cursed or separated in a Sethian context. Then there's the star. The original team read a star guiding Judas as a positive sign, but Taconic notes that in Sethian cosmology, stars are actually demonic signs tied directly to the demiurge. Even the word for Judas's identity, which was translated as spirit, Taconic argues actually means a subordinate demon.
So, we end up with two completely opposed sides looking at the exact same document. Side 1 reads a positive Sethian role where Judas is the chosen one. Side 2 reads a negative Sethian role where Judas is entirely condemned to the material realm. Both sides totally agree this is a Sethian text, but the original Coptic language itself is genuinely ambiguous. We're looking at both readings impartially here because, to this day, the exact nature of Judas's role remains fiercely contested by experts.
Part 5. The power of translation. Let's zoom out from the text itself for a minute.
This specific controversy teaches us an absolutely essential lesson. Translators hold intense power over history. Ancient texts simply do not speak for themselves. The only way we access them is through the interpretive choices of modern scholars, and those choices actively shape what the entire world believes a text says.
Let's break down how this mechanism of power actually operates. Ancient Coptic vocabulary doesn't just map perfectly onto modern English. The words are ambiguous, they are highly context-dependent. And that means every single translation is, at its core, a modern interpretive choice. The translator has to pick a lane. And as we see right here, first-pass translations, especially ones done under really tight media deadlines, are rarely the final word. Yet, they inevitably alter how history is consumed by the broader public.
But regardless of the translation debate, there is a really profound human emotion behind this text. Just think about it. Someone back in the 2nd century performed a massive act of imaginative compassion. They actually sat down and completely reevaluated history's most notorious figure. They asked, what was it actually like to be him? What if he was literally just doing what he was asked to do?
Which brings us right back to our survival story. Remember Irenaeus? He condemned this text way back in 180 CE. He actively tried to stamp it out. Then, centuries later, it sat decaying in that totally destructive Hicksville bank vault. But despite the early church condemnation, and despite absolute modern carelessness, the text survived for us to debate today. Ultimately, Irenaeus lost. The manuscript won.
But all of this leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought. If our entire understanding of a 2,000-year-old text, whether its main character is a beloved hero or a condemned demon, rests entirely on a single translator's choice of context, well, how much of the history you read on a daily basis is just an educated guess?
In our next explainer, we're stepping away from the theological debates and moving into a pure, totally unresolved mystery. We're going to dive into the Voynich manuscript. It's a text discovered in 1912, featuring an entirely unknown script and completely impossible botanical diagrams that still managed to defeat every cryptographer and AI system applied to it. See you there.